Hello everyone. Welcome back to another thrilling installment of a Tim and Tom's Film Nights where we discuss films, old and new, that have captured our hearts and imagination. Today, Thomas, we're diving into the world of Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown, a film that blurs the lines between crime and thriller, action and drama, all while giving us a fantastic performance by the ever-captivating Pam Grier. Now, Thomas, what are your initial thoughts on this masterpiece?
Well, Tim, I'm not quite sure if I'd call it a masterpiece just yet. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed parts of it, but overall, I found the pacing to be a bit, lackadaisical. It felt like nothing really happened until the last half hour or so. And, while Tarantino is known for his unique style, I think he went a bit too far this time around.
Now, Tom, let's not jump to conclusions just yet. You haven't even let me finish my thought. Besides, isn't part of the charm of a Tarantino film exactly that? The slow buildup of tension, the unpredictable twists and turns. It all pays off in the end, don't you think?
Well, I'm all for a good build-up and unpredictability, Tim. But it felt like we were just sitting there watching people talk about nothing for most of the film. And don't get me started on that noodle scene. What was the point of that? It could have been cut entirely and not have affected the plot at all. I'm not saying Tarantino can't tell a compelling story, but Jackie Brown is just one example where he maybe tried a bit too hard to be cool instead of focusing on what really mattered.
No, Tom, you're getting warmer, my dear fellow. You see, the whole point of that scene with Noodle is to establish Tarantino's unique style and his love for cinema, talking about cinema. It's a nod to films like Pulp Fiction, where he did the same thing, only with a completely different subject matter. And as for the talking, isn't that what makes a Tarantino film a Tarantino film? The dialogue, the banter between the characters, it all contributes to building up the tension. The suspense that eventually explodes in the most satisfying of ways.
All right, I'll give you that. But let's talk about the ending, Tim. I mean, come on. Everyone saw that twist coming a mile away. It was just predictable. And what about the whole thing with Simone Hawkins? She didn't even have any real importance to the plot. It felt like Tarantino just threw her in there to create a bit of drama or something.
Well, Tom, you're right about one thing. Tarantino does love his twists and turns. And as for Simone Hawkins, she does play a crucial role in the film. See, she represents betrayal. Trust issues that many of the characters face throughout the story. Plus, it adds another layer of complexity to the already intricate web of lies and deceit that is Jackie Brown. And as for the ending not being surprising, well, I'm afraid you've been living under a rock, my friend. The entire film builds up to that moment where Jackie finally reclaims her agency and takes control of her own destiny. It's a masterpiece in storytelling, plain and simple. Now, Thomas, being the film aficionado that you are, I'm sure you have some interesting trivia about Jackie Brown. What did you find out about this classic crime thriller?
Oh, I've got plenty of trivia for you, Tim. For starters, did you know that Jackie Brown is actually based on the 1992 novel Rum Punch by Elmore Leonard? And what about Pam Grier herself? She was initially hesitant to take on the role due to her concerns about returning to acting after a long hiatus. But Tarantino personally asked her to star in the film, which led to her eventual signing on. Now, let's talk about that iconic soundtrack. It features some amazing artists like Bobby Womack and Johnny Knoxville. But did you know that Tarantino actually had a specific reason for including each song? For example, he chose Across 110th Street by Bobby Womack because it was the same song used in the film Coffee, which starred Pam Grier. And as for Strawberry Ladder 23-inch by Shuggy Otis, Tarantino wanted a song that sounded like something Jackie would listen to while driving around town. Now, moving on to some behind-the-scenes trivia.
Did you know that Tarantino initially considered using Samuel L.
Jackson as the lead character Ordell Robbie instead of Robert Forster? Can you imagine that? But ultimately, he decided that Jackson was better suited for the role of Max Cherry instead. And speaking of casting choices, Tarantino actually wrote the part of Melanie Ralston, specifically with Bridget Fonda in mind. Finally, let's talk about some of the filming location. Did you know that they shot scenes at Los Angeles International Airport and the Hollywood Park racetrack? But perhaps most interestingly, they filmed one particular scene at a real-life strip club called The Body Shop. They had to shut down the entire club for 2 weeks just so they could shoot there without any distractions.
Wow, Tom, that's some fascinating trivia about Jackie Brown. It really shows how much thought and effort Tarantino put into this film. And I must say, it does make the movie even more enjoyable to watch, knowing all these little tidbits. Now, what do you think of the major differences between the novel Rum Punch and the film adaptation of Jackie Brown?
Well, Tim, as I mentioned earlier, Jackie Brown is actually based on Elmore Leonard's 1992 novel Rum Punch. While the film and the book share a similar plot, there are some significant differences between them. For starters, in the novel, the main character's name is not even Jackie. She's called Rum Punch by her fellow flight attendants due to her penchant for the strong rum cocktail. Additionally, her relationship with both Ordell and Luis Gara plays out differently. There are also some major plot twists that occur in the book that aren't exactly replicated in the film version. For example, in Rum Punch, Jackie doesn't just work as a flight attendant. She's also an ace-level thief who specializes in stealing valuable items from wealthy passengers and selling them to her criminal network. This aspect of her character is almost completely toned down in the film adaptation. Furthermore, Jackie doesn't have any romantic involvement with either of the male criminals in the book. She maintains a strictly professional relationship throughout the story. Despite these differences, I personally think that Tarantino did an excellent job of translating Leonard's novel into a gritty, crime-filled cinematic masterpiece. He managed to capture the essence of the original story while still adding his signature flair and humor to it. Plus, who can forget the iconic scenes with Pam Grier? Strutting around in those tight-fitting outfits. It's no wonder that Jackie Brown has become a cult classic in its own right. Now, Tim, what do you think about these differences between the novel and the film adaptation? Do you have any favorite scenes or moments from either version that, particularly stand out to you?
Well, Tom, I'm glad you brought up the topic of the cast because it truly is one of the film's strongest points. Let's start with the titular character herself, played brilliantly by Pam Grier now, as we mentioned earlier. This was a comeback role for her after a long hiatus from acting. But boy, did she nail it. Her portrayal of the tough yet vulnerable flight attendant turned mastermind criminal is simply mesmerizing. And speaking of masterful performances, I must mention Samuel L. Jackson's turn as the cold-blooded gunrunner Ordell Robbie. His charismatic yet deadly demeanor makes him impossible not to watch every time he gracefully struts onto the screen.
Now,
let's talk about Robert Forster's portrayal of Max Cherry, the aging bail bondman who becomes entangled in Jackie's web of crime and possibly love. His performance perfectly captures the conflicted emotions of man torn between his duty as a law enforcement officer and his growing feelings for a woman who is clearly more than just the suspect. And let's not forget about the supporting cast, including Bridget Fonda as the femme fatale Melanie Ralston, and Robert De Niro as the smooth-talking criminal mastermind Luis Gara. Each actor brings their top game to their respective roles, making the already engaging plot even more compelling to watch. Do you have any thoughts on the acting performances in Jackie Brown? Are there any particular scenes or moments that stood out for you, either positively or negatively?
Well, Tim, I think we both can agree that Tarantino has a knack for assembling an incredible cast, and Jackie Brown is no exception. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the film's artistic influence. It's clear from watching Jackie Brown that Quentin Tarantino drew inspiration from various sources, including but not limited to classic film, noir, neo-noir, and even pulp fiction novels. The film's visual style, cinematography, and use of music all pay homage to these influences while still maintaining its own unique identity. For example, the opening credits sequence featuring a smoky, black and white silhouette of Pam Grier in an iconic pose evokes classic fatal imagery seen in films like Double Indemnity or The Maltese Falcon. Additionally, Tarantino's dialogue is known for its sharp wit, witty banter, and pop culture references which are hallmarks of his signature style. However, it's not just the film's aesthetic that has left an indelible mark on cinema. The story itself, based on Elmore Leonard's novel, has been adapted multiple times over the years. The tale of a smart, resourceful woman who uses her wits and charm to escape from a life of crime has become a staple of the heist genre. Films like Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, and even Tarantino's own 2015 film, The Hateful Eight, owe a debt of inspiration to Jackie Brown's narrative structure and character development. Now, Tim, as a film aficionado yourself, do you see any other films or cinematic techniques that you believe were influenced by Tarantino's work in Jackie Brown? And lastly, what about the film's overall impact on cinema? Do you think it deserves to be considered a classic?
Well, Tom, I think we've discussed quite extensively the various aspects of Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown that have made it an iconic film in cinema history. From its stellar cast to the masterful direction to the tightly woven plot that keeps you on the edge of your seat, this is a film that demands respect and admiration from even the most casual of viewers. As for its impact on cinema, I believe it's safe to say that Tarantino's unique blend of crime, humor, and pop culture references has left an indelible mark on the heist genre. Films like Ocean's 11, which I mentioned earlier, owe a debt of inspiration to Jackie Brown's narrative structure and character development. And let's not forget about Tarantino himself, who's gone on to create some of the most memorable characters and scenes in modern cinema, often borrowing from the same wellspring of influences that informed his work on Jackie Brown.
Now,
I think we've probably babbled enough about this film for one episode. Let's wrap things up with our final thoughts, shall we? Tom, do you have any parting words or thoughts you'd like to share about Tarantino's masterpiece, Jackie Brown?
Well, Tim, I think we both agree that Jackie Brown is a classic in its own right. It's a testament to Quentin Tarantino's unique ability to weave together various genres and cinematic influences into one cohesive, captivating narrative. The performances, the dialogue, the music, everything just feels perfectly crafted. And while it may not be considered as iconic as films like Pulp Fiction or Inglourious Basterds, I believe that over time, Jackie Brown will certainly earn its place alongside Tarantino's other masterpieces in the annals of cinema history. So my final thoughts on Jackie Brown. If you haven't seen it yet, dear viewer, what are you waiting for? Go watch it. And, let us know what you think about this underrated gem of a film. And don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Until next time, farewell. And remember, never mess with a woman who can outsmart a criminal mastermind.